so unfiltered that it spread from the darkest corners of the South Side to headphones across the world. That sound was drill, and at its center stood a teenager named Keith Cozart. The world would soon know him as Chief Keef. By the time he was 16, his voice echoed through neighborhoods where sirens never slept, where kids his age weren't making college plans, but writing obituaries for their friends. Music wasn't just entertainment here. It was survival, confession, and war anthem all at once. Chief Keef didn't invent violence in Chicago, but he gave it rhythm, he gave it melody, and in doing so, he created a global movement. Yet behind the fame, the millions, and the legend of drill lies another truth. Nearly every young star from that first wave is gone, murdered, imprisoned, or silenced, all except one. This is not a story about how to win. It's a story about how to live when winning means losing everything else. And at its heart is a question that still lingered. How did Chief Keef become the last man standing? The return that shook Chicago on June 16th, 2024, more than 40,000 people packed into a Chicago festival ground, waiting for someone they thought they might never see again. The crowd raised their phones, ready to capture a moment that hadn't happened in over a decade. When Chief Keef finally stepped onto the stage, the city erupted. For many, it felt like a homecoming. For others, it was history being made. This was his first real Chicago performance since 2012. But beneath the cheers and flashing lights, there was something haunting. Fans saw a superstar, but they didn't see the shadows of all the drill rappers who never made it this far. King Von, FBG Duck, Lil Jojo, Fredo Santana, all gone, all young. Chicago's drill scene gave birth to legends, but it also buried most of them before their time. To understand Chief Keef's story, you need to know where it all began.
Street legends and kingpins.
Parkway Gardens. Most people call it O Block, and police call it one of the most dangerous places in America. This isn't just a set of apartments. It's a symbol of survival, struggle, and violence in Chicago's South Side. Keith Cozart was born in 1995. His father wasn't around, and his mother was too young to raise him on her own. So, his grandmother stepped in. She raised him in a small, two-bedroom apartment right in the middle of O Block. For Keith, this wasn't just a neighborhood, it was the world. In O Block, you don't choose your environment, the block chooses you. By the time Keith was a teenager, he was already part of the Black Disciples, one of the city's largest street organizations. Not because he dreamed of it, but because there weren't many other paths. O Block wasn't just home, it was a battlefield. Rival groups lived only blocks away, and every street corner carried history, grudges, and danger. Growing up here meant that violence wasn't something you heard about on the news. It was part of daily life. Violence as a normal life. For Keith, violence was never shocking. It was normal. By the time he was 16, Chicago was seeing more than 500 murders every year. That's not just a number. It means someone's child was dying every 17 hours. In O Block alone, things were so dangerous that pizza delivery drivers refused to enter. Ambulances needed police escorts just to respond to calls. Keith's friends weren't thinking about part-time jobs or college applications. They were worried about making it home alive. He lost people young. His friend Lil Steve, his cousin Blood Money, and many others. For him, tragedy wasn't rare. It was Tuesday. This constant danger shaped the way Keith saw the world. When death is always close, your sense of normal changes. What might seem shocking to others becomes part of the routine. For a teenager growing up in this environment, it wasn't about if violence would reach you, but when. This was the atmosphere that raised Chief Keef. Surrounded by gunshots, sirens, and funerals, he had to find a way to process it all. For him, that outlet wasn't sports or school, it was music. And soon, the sounds of his block would become the sounds of a movement. Music born in chaos. He didn't have a fancy studio or expensive equipment. What he had was a laptop, a cheap microphone in his grandmother's living room. That was all he needed to start creating something powerful. His early recordings weren't polished. You could hear sirens in the background, sometimes even gunshots outside the window. But that was the point. His music sounded like his environment because it was his environment. The rawness, the unfiltered truth, gave it a feeling that no studio could recreate. While his friends were planning robberies or getting into fights, Keith was experimenting with beats. His close collaborator, Young Chop, would send him instrumentals by email, and Keith would turn them into tracks filled with energy, frustration, and pain. He wasn't trying to be a superstar yet. He was just documenting what he saw every day. By 2011, the South Side was already buzzing about this kid with a unique sound. His music didn't just describe violence, it transformed it into rhythm. People started to recognize that Keith was creating something new. It wasn't just rap anymore, it was drill. And before long, drill was about to explode far beyond Chicago. House Arrest, Unexpected Studio, December 2011 seemed like the end of the road. At just 16 years old, Keith was arrested for pointing a gun at police. Officers fired shots at him but missed. Instead of jail, he was placed on house arrest, forced to stay inside his grandmother's apartment with an ankle monitor. For most kids, this would have been punishment. For Keith, it became an opportunity. He couldn't leave, so he turned the small apartment into his recording studio. With his microphone, his laptop, and beats from Young Chop, he kept making music nonstop. Being trapped actually gave him focus. He couldn't run the streets, so all of his energy went into songs. And in a strange way, that ankle monitor might have saved his life. It forced him to stay inside, while Chicago outside was getting even deadlier. What came out of this period wasn't just a few tracks. It was the foundation of drill music. Songs like Bang started spreading on YouTube. People across Chicago began to see this young rapper not just as another neighborhood kid, but as the voice of a generation. House Arrest didn't break him. It built Chief Keef. The breakthrough I Don't Like. In early 2012, Keith released a song that changed everything I Don't Like. The beat, produced by Young Chop, was simple, aggressive, and hypnotic. But it was Keith's delivery that made it unforgettable. He wasn't rapping in the traditional sense. He was shouting, declaring what he hated, calling out rivals by name. This wasn't abstract poetry. Every line had real meaning, tied to real people. When Keith said 300, he was shouting out his crew. When he mentioned ops, he meant actual enemies with guns. For Chicago, this was reality put to music. For the rest of the world, it was shocking and fresh. The video blew up on YouTube, gaining millions of views in weeks. Teenagers across the country were chanting his lyrics, even if they didn't fully understand the danger behind them. And then came the moment that pushed him to the mainstream. Kanye West remixed the song, bringing Chief Keef onto a track with Pusha T, Jadakiss, and Big Sean. Suddenly, a 16-year-old on house arrest had a $6 million deal with Interscope Records. Chicago drill was now global. But with fame came a new set of problems, because the same authenticity that made Keef famous also made him a target. Digital beef turns deadly drill culture didn't just live on the streets, it lived online. Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube became weapons in a new kind of war. And in 2012, the conflict between Chief Keef and a young rapper named Lil Jojo showed just how deadly that could be. Jojo, only 18 years old, was part of the Gangsta Disciples, rivals to Keef's Black Disciples. Inspired by Keef's success, Jojo released BDK, short for Black Disciple Killer. The song openly dissed Keef and his crew, using the same drill style that Keef had made popular. The video went viral. Social media exploded with taunts and threats from both sides. Jojo posted his location, rode through BD territory on his bike, and even recorded himself calling out Keef's allies. Hours later, Jojo was shot and killed. When Keef tweeted, "It's sad cause that bleep Jojo wanna be just like us." LMAO, the world was stunned. The police named him a person of interest, and the media painted him as a symbol of violent rap culture. For drill artists, beef wasn't just entertainment, it was life or death. And in Jojo's case, it ended in tragedy. Death circling closer. After Jojo's death, it felt like the violence around Chief Keef only got worse. In January 2013, his stepbrother was murdered. In 2014, gunmen shot at his manager's house in the suburbs. That same year, his cousin Blood Money, someone he loved and had signed to his label, was killed in broad daylight. Each loss chipped away at him. Funerals became routine. Police surrounded services, expecting retaliation at any moment. Even when he left the city, the violence followed him. It was clear nowhere was safe. For Keef, these deaths were wake-up calls. He realized that if he stayed in Chicago, he would eventually end up like the rest. Another headline, another mural on the wall. As he later admitted in interviews, losing Blood Money taught him that survival meant change. Staying wasn't about being tough. It was about being reckless. Still, leaving came with its own price. His enemies mocked him for running away. His fans thought he had abandoned his roots. But to him, survival mattered more than pride. And every new tragedy proved he was right. Law and social media as traps. If the streets weren't trying to take Chief Keef down, the law was. From speeding charges to marijuana arrests to violating probation, the court system kept him under constant pressure. But there was another problem. Social media, the very thing that made him famous, became the perfect tool for prosecutors. Every photo of him holding a gun, every Instagram live in a dangerous location, every tweet aimed at an enemy, it was all evidence. He didn't need informants. He was documenting himself. At one point, a video of him firing rifles at a gun range while intoxicated went viral. But since he was on probation for gun charges, that clip became proof of a violation. The judge gave him 60 days in detention. In a way, the legal system may have saved him. Being locked up meant missing funerals, but it also meant staying alive. Keef even admitted once that sometimes jail was the only thing keeping him safe. The trap was clear. If the streets didn't kill you, your own online footprint could. And for Keef, balancing fame and survival became harder every day. Zao in Los Angeles. In 2014, Chief Keef left Chicago for good. He moved to Los Angeles, trading gunshots for palm trees. He rented a mansion in the valley with pools, tennis courts, and enough space to feel like a new world. For the first time in his life, he experienced silence. No sirens, no rival gangs lurking, no constant fear of being caught in crossfire. As he once said, His favorite part about LA was the quiet, but leaving didn't erase the pain. From Los Angeles, he had to watch tragedy after tragedy unfold back home. Fredo Santana, his close friend, died young. FBG Duck was murdered while shopping downtown. King Von, who was seen as the next superstar, was killed in Atlanta. Keef could only watch from a distance. He couldn't even attend funerals because of legal issues. Exile gave him safety, but it also gave him isolation. To many, it looked like he abandoned Chicago, but for Keef, it was the only way to stay alive. He became a ghost in his own story, present through his music, absent from the streets that raised him. Survival came with loneliness. The price of survival. By 2024, Chief Keef was drill's last man standing from his first generation. Nearly everyone else was gone, dead or in prison, not because he was the toughest or the most feared, but because he made the hardest choice: to leave. His return to Chicago for Summer Smash was proof of survival, but also a reminder of what was lost. Every song he performed carried the memory of someone who didn't make it. Love Sosa brought back Fredo. I Don't Like recalled the war with JoJo. Collaborations reminded the crowd of King Von. The music became a memorial. For fans, he's the blueprint, the founder, the legend who outlasted them all. But for Keef himself, survival came at a cost. He lost his city, his authenticity, and even a part of the person he used to be. The young, hungry kid from O Block became a man living in exile. In the end, Chief Keef's story shows a painful truth. Sometimes the only way to win is to walk away. You can keep your legend, or you can keep your life. Keith Cozart chose life, and that choice is what makes him the last man standing. Chief Keef's journey shows us that survival can be the greatest victory of all. From O Block to global stages, his story reminds us of the heavy price that comes with fame, choices, and escape. Thank you for watching and spending this time with us. If you found this helpful, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe for more valuable insights into music